Hello, everyone, and welcome to Casual Experts Only. I'm Mike, and I am joined by Bryce. Say hello, Bryce.
Hello.
And we are going to be spending the next handful of weeks just kind of discussing and breaking down and talking about the Andor series. Every new episode that comes out, these will be coming out every week, so yeah, stay tuned, I guess. But this episode, we're going to be talking about the first 4 episodes. It might be a little longer, but the rest of the episodes, it'll just be one episode each we'll be talking about. So yeah, how you feeling? What do you think about Andor so far?
So far, I'm liking the tone. I'm liking the setting. I'm liking the story. I'm liking the characters.
Yeah.
I think the strong points for me is definitely the plot. I'm not too into Cassian's character as of yet. I feel like he's still missing some stuff for me to be like super interested into him specifically.
Sure.
But I like that they are explaining his upbringing and him as a kid and the kind of mystique around where he's from. It feels very much like a cat and mouse type movie, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Or not movie, but series.
Yeah.
But generally liking it.
Yeah. I agree. I think, for me, I think I already do like Andor's character, but I liked him in Rogue One.
Yeah.
So, there's that, but I feel like they are trying to kind of flesh him out a little bit, which, I would hope so. It's his series.
Yep.
But
Yep.
yeah, like you said, it is kind of a cat and mouse thing. I wasn't really sure where they were going, because they were spending a lot of time. The first 3 episodes was all about the Corpo security going after Andor, and right. I was, I'm still not sure, but I'm guessing at this point that was more just the beginning, and now it's more he's going to be dealing with the Empire for the rest of the series.
Yeah.
I'm guessing, but I will say that this show feels like the most mature, Star Wars content that we've seen, and I don't mean tits and F-bombs and stuff kind of mature, not like Game of Thrones, but just they're spending a lot of time just building story and building the kind of the world and just the characters, and it's showing somewhat mundane aspects of the characters, but I feel like that's making all the characters feel more 3-dimensional.
Yes,
they have actual lives.
I think a good word for it is very grounded.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a good way to put it, because they are taking a lot of time to explain things and to kind of draw them out.
And even that scene I felt with Mon Mothma, which is in episode 4. We'll get to more of that later. I'm just mentioning this now, but they had that one scene with her and her husband, and they just show that she and her husband don't see eye to eye politically, and he's just more aloof, and she really wants, she obviously cares more
she's
about she obviously cares about the people she represents, and I think just the galaxy at large. And it seems like his friends are very friendly to the Empire, whereas she isn't outright, obviously it's not okay to be outright against the Empire, but she is definitely using her powers as a senator to try and help people. So I found just that is interesting. It really makes her character more 3-dimensional, and they didn't have to do that. I feel like in most Star Wars projects they wouldn't necessarily have done that, but this is really taking its time, and I feel like it feels slow because of that. There isn't a whole lot of action. It's mostly just building things up and sort of setting up characters, but I think it's probably it's really well written though.
Oh yeah, I think that the story is progressing at a very. It is slow. It is a little bit slow, but I think being that I'm looking for a more mature view of Star Wars now that I'm older, I think that it's really tickling my fancy.
Well,
and I think that I typically enjoy the smaller stories anyway. Not that this isn't going to amount to what Rogue One is, right? So, but I definitely enjoy the smaller scale stuff more so than like the big action packed. But I've said that before, like in the previous one, where it's just like
Right.
I enjoy like the intricacies of the universe. So I think this kind of really just drives that kind of feeling home.
Yeah, there's a lot of world building. Like we talked about that when we recorded that Obi-Wan episode. We were just
Yeah.
talking about how a lot of Star Wars that's the most interesting is just like the lore
Hmm.
and stuff going on behind the scenes that isn't necessarily in all the movies or even the shows.
Hmm.
And I feel like they've done that a little bit. Like we talked about like the Bad Batch and even like the Mandalorian a little bit and an Obi-Wan. But this show seems almost like the main point of this show is to explain and explore what's going on with everybody else under the oppression of the Empire.
Exactly. I think
Um,
it's kind of showing about the power and the people of the universe underneath Empire's control and why they're angry about it.
yeah, and it's obviously about Andor, but the feeling I got from the trailer and really what I feel like I've gotten from the show so far is it is more about the world and the rebellion, just kind of the intricacies of the rebellion and sort of its infancy than it
Yeah.
is only about Andor.
Yeah.
Which I feel like is the best way to go because we do know what happens to Andor. Like, there's no real mystery about where he ends up.
Right. It's just like it's almost like he's the catalyst just to tell like the
Yeah,
story of what's going on around him and about the
right.
rise of the rebellion,
Yeah,
as opposed to like focusing on him as a character. But they do him justice with the flashbacks of him as a kid.
sure.
So I
Which,
think is really interesting.
yeah. I kind of, so, I guess just kind of delving into the first 3 episodes, which to me, like I already said this to you, but kind of felt like an extended, like, pilot.
Yeah.
Because they weren't super long, but they were all very kind of self-contained. It was almost like one complete story, like an episode.
Yeah, it was like almost like all three episodes were like a complete act.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because that whole first thing just kind of set up Andor and his run-in with not really the Empire, but the corporate security or whatever. Which,
They're called Primo, I believe. I
yeah,
think
yeah, I
I'm not
think you're
100%
right.
sure.
Yeah, I think
Um,
they've like called them corporate security at one point, but I think their actual name is like Primo.
yeah, Primo, which seems like a policing force or of or like a third party contractor that like I don't know if they're Empire hired, but they um
It's
I don't know.
yeah.
I couldn't really tell. But not to mention I also want to mention that it the planets in which it's taking place are all like within a free trade zone. It said that at the beginning, I believe,
Okay.
during when it introed, I think the first planet he went to, which I'm forgetting the name of.
Yeah, me too.
But I believe the second planet is Phoenix,
Okay.
Phoenix or Ferrix, one of those two. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right.
I think that it's got a lot of environments for like
Yeah.
how many episodes we've already seen.
Mhm.
It's very wide because it's like 4 planets that I think
Mhm.
we've already like had things taking place at. Because Coruscant, the
Oh
first one,
yeah, that was super cool.
Phoenix, and then it was the planet in episode 4 that he reaches after
Right. And there's his
Lore.
home planet in the flashbacks, Canary.
Oh, yep. So 5. So we've already seen several planets,
Yeah.
which the variety is
And
fucking immaculate. Of
and I
course.
feel like each of them is very unique. Like I feel like they're really not trying to make it feel too Star Wars-y, even though it's set in the same universe. I
Mhm.
feel like they're like trying a lot of new things and trying to make the planets feel really unique.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
even the shows like The Mandalorian, they did show some new planets, but most of the planets, even if they were new to us, were very familiar. Like
Yeah,
even that one planet that he started out on felt like Tatooine, even though it wasn't.
yeah.
And the one planet, I forget what it's called, like that forest planet, did kind of feel like Endor.
I don't remember the name of it.
Yeah, but I feel like this show, like if I didn't know it was connected to Star Wars and everything, they didn't mention the Empire and stuff. For some of the episode, I kind of felt like it was a different sci-fi story in some respects.
Oh yeah, I think so too, and I think there's a lot of I think it is intentional as well,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
um, because they kind of just drop the Empire in as like
Hmm.
a glooming force. It's almost like
Yes.
it's more or less about presence, and they speak about that at the ISB, which, by the way, I'm really glad that they included
Mm-hmm.
having the ISB in there
Yeah.
because I believe it played a part in the Battlefront 2 campaign. I can't quite remember, but
Yeah, I
I
think you're
believe the
right. That
character
sounds
you
familiar.
played was the from the ISB, or you were
Yeah.
fighting the ISB. I can't quite remember, but uh, seeing a different like section of the Empire in its inner
Mm-hmm.
workings and
Mm-hmm.
how they deal with issues is really cool to see.
Yeah.
I think that it really drives it home the Empire's influence when it comes to uh, I'm sorry, what was this home planet's name again? Uh,
Um, Kenari, I believe.
Nari. When
Kenari, yeah.
the kids go up over the hill and then they see like the mining in all the
Yeah.
quarries,
Yeah.
and you see how destructive the Empire can be if they do
Mm-hmm.
so choose,
Mm-hmm.
and will harvest planets for their natural resources, regardless of the
Right.
people who live there.
Right.
Um, and I think that the fact that they're keeping Canary in its origin a secret is kind of like plays into that because
Yeah.
it's kind of still mysterious as to what's kind of going on with that planet, and
Mm-hmm.
most people are kind of confused when they hear about it, or you know,
Yeah, and and they did say that it was destroyed with like an imperial mining accident.
okay, yes,
Which
yes,
it's I will say it's a little like I feel like Andor's story, his backstory, is a little confusing. It's hard. Like I feel like it's I don't know if like I'm guessing they're probably going to make it more clear as time goes on, but I
yeah,
feel like it's a bit like in pieces because they did have the flashbacks, but it's hard to tell like when this happens. Like I'm guessing it's after his parents died or something, because it's just a bunch of kids
yeah. I was
in
gonna say,
that
did
little
you notice
tribe.
that it was all kids?
Yeah, and but then that one guy, son of a gun, what's his name? Luthen,
Yes.
Luthen Rail, the Stellan Skarsgård character. He
Yeah.
mentioned that his dad was hanged by like an Imperial garrison or something.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that happens later because it seems like the flashbacks take place before the Empire, which would make sense given his age.
Hmm.
Because at this point, the Empire's only been around for like 15 years. Because like they said at the beginning, it's 5 BBY.
Yes.
So I'm a little confused because I assumed his parents were dead when they showed those flashbacks, but then if his dad was hanged by an Imperial garrison, that would happen later. So it's a little confusing exactly what's going on. It feels like hard to kind of piece his past together, and maybe that's the point.
Yeah. Yeah, and I did catch that too. I did catch that bit where his father had been hung by Imperials,
Mm-hmm.
and and it doesn't really make sense, especially when you think about the scene where the ship crash lands on Canary,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and it's got Republic insignias on it,
Right.
or like yeah, the Galactic Republic's insignias or whatever
Mm-hmm.
on it. Um, because I kind of caught that and I was like, oh, that's interesting. So this is kind of around the time that they're still influenced, and I kind of like how that there's that dual influence. Not that it was like really in your face; it was kind of just like a side thing that you notice on the ship.
Yeah.
But um, nonetheless, I think it was. I think it's kind of a weird time frame. I think I'm still trying to figure that out as well.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't help that his life, would obviously span both the Republic, like the height of the Republic and the height of the Empire. So,
Right. And yeah,
when his mom showed up, or his adopted mom,
yeah,
and kind of,
just like kind of abducted him.
yeah, like I mean, she,
You know,
I
like
mean,
that's kind of what it was. Like
it kind of
everyone's gonna
was,
die.
but it was to save his life because likely the Republic would just show up and start blasting, once
Yeah,
they
which
saw their
also
own men
didn't make
dead.
sense.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, I feel like, I mean, unless there's more to it, I think it's probably the first time outside of the Clone Wars that, you know, we see a realistic representation of, just like, because I'm guessing this takes place during the Clone Wars, those flashbacks.
Yeah.
it's like the first one see like a realistic representation that kind of like messed up stuff happens on both sides. It's not as simple as like, oh well, the Republic is like just like
All
absolutely,
good. Right.
yeah, exactly. So I'm
Right.
guessing that that's what they were trying to show there.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
Either that, or I have heard some people saying that they suspected that the ship was actually like a separatist ship or something, and that like they got it wrong that it wasn't the Republic or something. I don't
Yes.
know.
And that also Luthen also mentions the separatists
Hmm.
because they're also against the Empire. And he mentions how
Oh,
they
interesting.
yeah, because he names off a few different sects of resistances towards the Empire,
Uh,
and he says seps. He didn't say separatists. He said seps.
Interesting. I kind of
So
missed that.
yeah, so the separatists are still kind of like around, I guess, but
Hmm.
more like low key, kind of like these characters are doing. But
Interesting.
because it was in the ship when Lutheran is taking him over to whatever her name is, and
Oh yeah.
he mentions that like what's the difference
Hmm.
between all of them, and he just says like, oh well, what's the difference?
Hmm.
But trying to like get across that like the enemy of my enemy is my friend type idea.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's because at this point in the power of the empire, it's more or less just like all of us against them
Hmm.
because the empire is so powerful
Right.
that really that's the biggest like thing to be dealing with and to kind of
Hmm.
put your like differences aside to face
Right.
the real threat, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of Luthen and like that whole scene and everything, well, not that scene specifically, but when Luthen and Andor are leaving the planet in his ship, they
Mhm.
drew kind of an interesting parallel to when his adopted mom, Mama Andor, let's call her that, I
Oh
guess,
yeah,
like kind of took him from his home planet. They like because they interwove that scene with Luthen going into hyperspace.
yeah, with him looking out the cockpit and out
Yeah,
the window,
right.
and yeah, they edited it like directly next to each other.
Yeah,
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 I did catch that. That was really nice.
yeah.
I am excited to kind of see what kind of happens between the time that obviously Andor is an adult and
Hmm.
what is kind of going on as his adopted mother kind of takes him. I am kind of curious to see kind of what goes on
Yeah, I do hope they do more flashbacks, kind of showing him like growing up. After
throughout
he's
the
he's
years. Yeah,
adopted. Yeah.
kind of see like what her thinking was there
Hmm.
and what she did actually made a difference and
Hmm.
saved his life if it's explicit or if it's just like gonna be like
Right.
this side like
Right.
oh yeah like we might have saved your life
Uh huh.
type thing. I kind of want to be explicit or else like her taking him doesn't really make that much sense.
Yeah, that's fair. I think. Well, we do know he's looking for his sister. He mentioned that at the very beginning. He went to like
Yes.
that brothel or whatever it was, and space brothel, I guess, and
Yeah.
was looking for his sister. Which I'm kind of curious how he knows she's alive because last time he saw her, she was just a little kid.
Right.
So I'm sure they're going to delve more into that as the series goes on. But it was kind of an interesting thing to just sort of drop at the beginning and then not pick up at all
Yeah,
for the
because
for the next few episodes.
if his planet's destroyed, which I can't quite remember that detail that when they said that his planet was destroyed, but I do
Hmm.
remember the mining accident, but I didn't remember that the whole planet was destroyed or not.
Well,
But
they at least suggested that like everybody on the planet was dead, pretty much.
yes, yeah, okay, and I want to know if he is just going off of the feeling that she's alive or
Hmm.
whether he had seen her again
Right. Well, I mean,
because
I'm assuming he knows something because why would he go there? He knew she was there at that space brothel, or else he wouldn't have gone there. So,
well
somehow he
they
knows
said it
something
was
about her.
a Canary woman. They didn't specify it was his sister. She wasn't sure.
Right. Yeah, that's true. But like something drew him there. Like it's not like he just
Yeah.
happened to be there.
I
So
think
I'm
it was just
get.
the fact that it was a Canary woman because there's not a
Yeah,
whole
he
lot of
probably
Canary
heard.
around.
Yeah. Yeah, that's possible.
Yeah.
I guess we'll
Uh,
see. But I do feel like it's definitely like a plot thread that they're not just gonna like leave alone.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they'll connect it some
Yeah,
point later on. And you said there's reportedly 12 episodes. There's going to be
I think there's 11,
11. Okay, because
11 in
I thought it
season
was kind of
one.
weird because they've been doing like the 6 or 8
Hmm.
episode runs, and I
No, I'm sorry, it is 12.
well, okay, perfect.
Yeah,
Because wasting through the first, not wasting, but using the first 3 episodes kind of seemed like weird to me when I
yeah,
didn't know that there was going to be more, like that
right.
many episodes.
Well,
Um,
I kind of wish more like Disney Plus series, at least the Star Wars ones, were like longer.
mhm.
Because I feel like it would just give things more time to be developed and breathe, you know. Because like with this series, they spent the first 3 episodes basically just setting everything up,
Yeah.
you know. Like whereas all the other Disney Plus series would spend like the first episode or even half the first episode doing that, you know.
Hmm.
Um, not every series needs that, but I do feel like a lot of times these like 6 episode series, even 8 episode series are kind of like rushed,
Yeah.
or that they just feel like it should have been spread out over another few episodes.
Hmm.
So
I kind
I
of felt
kind
that way
of
with season 2 of Mandalorian because he does quite a
yes,
lot of jumping. He does a
yeah,
lot of jumping throughout that season,
yeah,
and
yeah,
he's always in like like a new environment.
right,
So
exactly.
it's kind of like, yeah, time's passing, so it's kind of just like checking in
Hmm.
every now and again. Where this is like a cohesive,
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, time is passing at like a normal
Hmm.
rate, and you're following like the all of the actions in which they're taking,
Hmm.
which is kind of cool.
Well, yeah, and I feel like even Book of Boba Fett felt kind of rushed in some respects, and like they spent a whole episode and a half on the Mandalorian. I felt
Yeah,
like that I feel like they probably could have done a little better if they had spent another couple episodes on just like developing Boba Fett a little more or something. I don't know.
yeah. Although I did really enjoy
Yeah. Oh yeah.
the
I mean,
because I think it was episode 2 that he
mhm.
ends up like joining the 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 tribe.
Yeah, the
And
Tusken
that
Raiders.
episode, yeah, and then them taking out the train and such, and that episode is
Right.
really, really good.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I was more like referring to like maybe like more his development like now. You know,
Yeah,
I think they spent like the perfect amount of time on him like in the past, but I maybe would have liked to see a little more of his like I guess development of his motivations and everything in the
yeah, I
modern
think you're
day.
right.
I
Yeah,
felt like it just kind of happened, and we didn't have a huge reason why besides he just like wanted to do it.
I
You
like
know?
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
exactly. But I'm not like saying that or the Mandalorian season 2 or anything is bad at all. I just feel like they could have done with a little more time to kind of flesh things out,
Yeah,
like this series is doing.
sure. But then again, it's like we also always want more episodes.
Well, yeah,
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 it's always like,
yeah,
yes, give me more story, give me more.
right. And I
So
think
we're always gonna want more.
well, and the thing too, I think what the Mandalorian did really well is even though, like you said, he was like somewhere different each episode. I think that did work well for like given the fact that it was released every week.
Yeah.
Because every week you kind of don't want to have to wait for the next episode. It is kind of nice to have kind of a cohesive, 1 episode story each episode with like,
Yes.
like a perfect blend of action and,
Right. That's fair.
dialogue and everything. But that is the thing. I know a lot of streaming services are going more to the, you know, releasing an episode every week thing because that's kind of what TV always did, and in some respects, dropping everything all at once does make it hard for the production. But I feel like so many stories, in series, just kind of don't really benefit from being released like one bit at a time. I feel like a lot of them have stories that are kind of meant to be experienced, at least in larger chunks than just 1 episode every week.
Right.
So I don't know. Sometimes I do feel like it is a very different experience when you watch it 1 week at a time, as opposed to watching it, within like a week period. Like at your leisure.
Yeah, like binging it.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
it feels like just more like one story, and you don't like forget stuff that happened like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
sure.
I mean, it's even worse on network television when you have 24 episodes in a
Oh
season, and like
yeah,
something that happened in like episode 2 comes back in episode 20, and you're like, I don't remember that at all.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But anyway, back to the actual Andor series. Let's talk about that one character, Deputy Inspector Karn.
Yes.
It seems like he's going to have. I mean, even though we kind of have moved on from the what are they
Primo.
called? Yeah, Primo chasing him. Now it's more like the Empire is involved in this now, but it does seem like he's still going to be a character in this show.
Yes, I got that impression as well.
Especially considering how much they built him up. And he's the kind of character, that doesn't leave well enough alone kind of thing. It's like
What do you mean?
so, like his chief wanted to just be like, well, they were drunkards, loudmouths and everything. Let's just say they died in some accident.
Yeah.
The two officers that Cassian killed.
Yeah.
And, he's the kind of guy that, wants to go by the book and everything, but
Yeah.
also has like an almost obsessive, no, not almost, very obsessive, like drive to pursue what he sees as justice,
Yeah.
when
Yeah,
it's
I
more
think
just when it's more just an obsessive adherence to the rules.
Yes.
And very much reminded me of Inspector Javert in Les Miserables. I don't know if you're familiar with that like
I'm
book or play at all, but
I know of it. I'm aware of it. I just don't know nothing about it.
right, like that character, Inspector Javert, was like obsessed with chasing down the main character, Jean Valjean, because first he like stole a piece of bread and was in prison for years for that. And then once he got out on parole, he basically violated his parole to go start a whole new life. But then, like, Javert, once he figures out who he is, he just, like, relentlessly pursues him for, like, no real reason. And he's just, like, obsessed with, like, making sure this person pays for some reason, you know? And that kind of, like, it seems sort of similar characters that are just, like, obsessed with making, like, somebody pay because they violated the rules, basically.
Yeah. I also enjoyed the fact that Primo itself was kind of incompetent.
Yeah. It's true. Like, and they even mention that, like, once the Empire figures it, like, here's their report. They're like, yeah, we're taking over.
They're like, you guys are not professionals. You guys are,
Which it seems like they did have some sort of autonomy. It seems like they reported to the Empire ultimately, but from day-to-day operations, it seems like they just kind of could handle things themselves.
Right, because like I said, it's a free trade zone, and they're kind of just out there wherever they're at in the universe, and the Empire's like, yeah, we'll get to you.
Right, I think that's a really interesting concept because so far, at least in like the Imperial era, we mostly just see stormtroopers like enforcing everything.
Oh yeah.
So to see like another more individual organization do that, or independent outside of just a bunch of stormtroopers, was kind of interesting.
It was, and it was refreshing, and it was nice, and
Yeah.
I think it's a good contrast against the capability or so-called capability of the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I do like the meticulousness of the ISB and of what's his name?
Karn, the Deputy Inspector Karn.
Yeah. I do enjoy his character though. I think that after the battle that they had, I think that he seemed conflicted. And he's like, am I doing this for the right reasons?
I think it was pretty clear that he was kind of a desk jockey. Like, he mostly just stayed on base and just ordered people around. Because as soon as they got into, or as soon as there was the prospect of him leading, the troops on the actual ground, he seemed really nervous.
Yeah, and he kind of let the other guy take over and kind of just...
Yeah.
Yeah.
and he didn't know how to really give an actual briefing or speech or anything to the men. And when he saw all those people die, all his men die, and almost being killed by Andor, he
Mhm.
seemed like very disturbed, like he had never really seen that kind of stuff before.
Yes, yes.
So
I think that's cool development.
yeah, I think you may be right. He may be a little conflicted, or he might just be kind of like traumatized now that he's actually seen, what life is actually like outside of the base.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Um,
I'm kind of curious
yeah.
to see where his character goes because I kind of thought maybe
Yeah.
he's gonna go towards like the rebellion and kind of like join up with them and be in cahoots with them, but that doesn't really fall in line with what we've seen him as a character because
No,
he is meticulous,
feel
and
like you would have to. Yeah.
I feel like he would fit better in like an ISB setting. So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
his character says one thing, but his actions like in the show in the way he was disturbed by
Hmm.
all that like seems like he seems like I said conflicted.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to see.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like he's pretty much out of a job at this point because he went back home to his
Yeah.
mom,
Yep.
which just seems like there's some history there for sure.
Yeah.
We kind of glossed over, but I did think it was kind of cool, just like the way the whole town kind of had like a warning. So like they obviously did not like Primo, and they had a whole like warning system.
Yeah.
And that whole speech that Andor's mom gave, I thought was actually pretty cool. Like even though she was there in like her own house, like kind of under arrest, it still felt like she had like more power there than the guys guarding her. They seemed really nervous.
Right.
And
Which
in
then
fact,
again plays in their incompetence.
right, but I also feel like that scene kind of sets up just the overall feeling of people are done with this oppression. People are done with being, just like treated like trash under the Empire.
Yeah.
And, like full scale rebellion is like right around the corner. And even though it was, those people against Primo, I feel like that's going across the whole galaxy against the Empire.
Yeah.
And I find it really cool because, we did obviously get to see all that in the original trilogy, but I feel like we started, like, kind of at the end, like, towards the end of their battle, and we didn't really get to see, what made people so mad. Like, we know the Empire was evil and, like, they would destroy planets and stuff, but we didn't really get to see the, like, on-the-ground, like, oppression and abuse of, like, just average people.
Right. And you see a little bit of that in Obi-Wan,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of interesting, but you also see the alternative of people being supportive of the Empire. So it's
Right.
um but that's also 5 years prior to this taking place. So
Yeah.
um
Right.
but yeah, it is it's interesting seeing how people are reacting and different planets are reacting to the control.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, we get to see like in episode 4, kind of moving on to episode 4, we get to see there's like this ragtag little like it's hard to tell if they're part of like a grander rebellion or if it's just them. But they're obviously being sponsored by Luthen Rael. Like I'm pretty sure that's what's going on. Is like it seems like him and maybe others who are influential and wealthy are kind of sending money and supporting these smaller groups, of rebels that wouldn't
Yes.
have the resources otherwise, which I find really interesting. Like we never really they never come out and explicitly say anything about that necessarily in the other Star Wars movies and shows and stuff. There are like politicians that are involved with it, but they they don't explicitly show them like just kind of funneling money and resources and stuff to them.
Right. And beings that they're in higher up in society and they are wealthy and that is probably the best they can do because they're probably public eye or high value target. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So if they
Yeah.
were to speak out against the
Well,
Empire, so
well, yeah. Even in A New Hope, we see when they first show Leia. She's a senator at that point on her way to the Galactic Senate, but it's pretty obvious she's doing some other stuff. She's trying to get the plans to
yeah.
the Death Star, and they kind of gloss over it in that, but there is just the suggestion that even this the senators and everybody influential that's helping is pretending like they're still part of the galactic senate or whatever.
Yeah,
even
absolutely.
though they're helping the rebellion on the side.
Right, and it also plays in with the ISB because remember the speech of the guy leading the team
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
him saying it's not.
Major. Yeah,
Yeah, Major, whatever his name is. I'm so bad
Partagaz.
with character. I am so bad with names.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
awful.
I have a list in front of me. That's the only reason I know.
Oh, okay.
Major Partagaz or something, if that's how you say his name.
Yeah, because like the one lady is
Yeah.
very meticulous and she's very good and she's talented and she knows that and she's very well read
Yeah.
and up to date on what it is that they do and she explicitly says it right out of the book and he even mentions that it was right out of the book.
Yeah.
But then he goes around and turns it right around and says, no, this is not about that. This is about stomping out resistance and stomping out, the infectious nature of rebellion.
Right. And yeah, and they actually, even in just that one episode, we did get to see a bit of kind of like almost like the office politics of the Empire, the IBS specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was interesting. Like they're even spending time to develop all these characters and the way they interact and how like the hierarchy of it all goes.
Yep, and how like he mentions that the one black male is
Yeah, Lieutenant Blevin.
yes, he is overseeing several sectors, whereas she's only overseeing like one or two.
Right. Yeah, that was
He's got like
interesting.
8 or 9 sectors that he's in control of or in charge of paying attention to, which is kind of interesting to see like the difference in workload.
Yeah,
and
and
how they delegate.
Yeah, and I feel like her name is Deidre Miro. I feel like her character like is kind of similar to Karn because they both seem very ambitious, and like they kind of want to take on more than they're really qualified for.
Yep.
And so I kind of feel like her character is going to be kind of like his, but in the Empire, and she's going to kind of like go up the ranks by trying to. I feel like she's going to be the main one trying to take down or chase down Andor.
Yeah.
Because it definitely feels like that's what this show is kind of leading towards is Andor, trying to help the rebellion while at the same time being chased down by the Empire.
Yeah, and she even mentions like that she feels as though there's a pattern to some thievery,
Right.
and she suspects something because of that flight controller or flight computer that they stole.
Yeah.
And
there were a few other events that she thought were related, even though they probably aren't, because it seems like Andor just stole it to sell it.
Right,
And to kind of prove a point. Yeah.
He was holding on to it. He had it stored away in that broken ship on the shipyard.
Yeah,
so,
I mean,
like,
it also
he even
seems
said
like
he was holding on to it for like a rainy day.
Right. Plus, like the way he described it to Luthen, like how arrogant the Empire is, and like they could never even imagine somebody like me being able to make their way into their inner sanctums.
Which
I feel
plays
like,
out as true.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah, and I found that really interesting because it really shows just kind of how people view the Empire and also just how like arrogant they've become. But also just shows that Andor, in a lot of ways, I feel like he's just kind of trying to give like a middle finger to the Empire.
Yeah.
Like even though he's trying to keep his head low.
Yeah, because he's still doing it for pay, and he's So I don't think he's for the cause per se. He's got his personal reasons why he doesn't like the Empire.
Right, which Luthen tried to play off of. That's like how he kind of recruited him. Besides the money, he tried to.
Right.
He saw in him that he hates the Empire too.
And then he ends up joining him after they get found out by Primo at the like engine facility or whatever that building was.
Which was a pretty cool scene, by the way.
It was.
All those things were falling, and that was.
There was that one guy that got wrapped up in the chain and got dragged across the room and hit his head against the
that
other
was
one. It was pretty brutal for Star Wars. I was just like, I like that.
That was cool. Yeah.
They ended up leaving that flight controller there too. I don't think they ended up recovering it.
Well, no, the Empire did. And Lieutenant Supervisor Blevin, he is the one that has it now, and Miro tried to get it from him, because she said it was like part of her jurisdiction, because it was stolen from a facility under her jurisdiction.
Yeah.
But she ended up getting blocked. But I'm guessing at some point she's gonna get her hands on it and somehow trace it back to Andor.
Oh yeah, she's definitely going to be his antagonist. I feel like
Yeah.
maybe perhaps
Maybe Karn too.
Yeah, maybe Karn too.
I guess. Yeah.
I am really interested in seeing what kind of happens in the future, seeing more of him as a young man, and how that connects to how became who he was, and why he has a distrust of the Empire and a hate for the Empire. Trying to kind of connect those dots.
Me too. And I think I'm just also looking forward to just seeing more Rebel Alliance action, just kind of seeing how that forms. Because right now it seems like it's more just a bunch of ragtag groups that haven't joined together into an official rebellion.
Yeah.
Because you have Saw Gerrera and his group that never really quite joined the wider Rebel Alliance. When we know we're going to see him at some point in this series. But then you also have this woman Vel leading just a group of 5 or 6 people.
She seems like an interesting character too.
Yeah, she does.
Seems like a strong rock type character, if that makes any sense.
And I was impressed that even though she doesn't trust Andor, she still was able to convince the rest of her team to trust him for the sake of the mission.
Yeah, right, exactly, because it's the whole thing it's for the cause. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I am interested. I also did you notice the guns that they were carrying? They're blasters.
Yeah, they were like
AKs.
AK. Yeah, I forgot I was going to mention that. Yeah, which I think is kind of funny because they look just like AK-47s, kind of upgraded, but I'm assuming they're blasters.
Yeah.
But I feel like that somewhat goes back to the older Star Wars roots in the original trilogy, because a lot of the weapons and costumes they used were actual things in real life that they had just altered. Han Solo's DL-44 is an old Chinese gun.
It's an old German one.
Is it German?
Yeah, I think it's the Luger.
No, it's not the Luger.
You might be right.
I'm pretty sure I saw it. I actually saw the same kind of gun in an old gun shop a while ago.
Yeah.
It is German though. You're right. It's a German Mauser C96 pistol.
Mauser. Okay, I got the name wrong, but
I
thought so. I couldn't quite remember.
Yeah. So I don't know why I thought it was Chinese, but yeah.
But I think you're absolutely right. It's kind of going back to the roots of how the original props and stuff were designed and made. And
even though there's no real even though there's no real reason to do that anymore.
It's just homage.
Yeah, I feel like it had to be intentional, but also probably just wanted more of a rustic look to the weapons. Because these people obviously don't have very much, money.
Yeah, and I also heard a good theory that they did that because all weapons are regulated underneath the Empire. So they had to create their own.
Oh, that'd be okay. Yeah.
I've also heard that theory, which was kind of cool to hear, because I was like, okay, that makes sense. So if the Empire is under control and say that one of their guys dies, they have they have a constricted or a inventoried weapon or whatever, then they could probably trace it to where they got that from, and then they could hunt it down from there. So having homemade weapons is probably the best for them. Yeah. Especially when they have the contact in the Empire.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. Exactly. It'd be kind of funny, though, if they were just straight up AKs and they just shot bullets. I
am kind of curious because they didn't fire any of them, did they?
No. Yeah. I was kind of hoping that they would, because I'm are those blasters?
If it would be kind of cool if they were just physical projectiles.
That would. We don't really see that in Star Wars outside of little darts and stuff.
Right, and so I think that being a start towards, or homemade projectile weapons, it's almost rudimentary for the time period or so-called time period of the futuristic setting of Star Wars.
Right.
I think that'd be really cool. I was kind of getting giddy about it. I was like, oh, I hope
Yeah.
they,
Yeah, I hope
um,
they. I like it seems like the next episode is going to be them actually going on the mission, so hopefully we get to see
oh yeah.
some space AK action.
And I'm really hoping that the effects and the visuals for that event that they said takes place every 3 years.
Oh yeah,
Not meteor shower, but like
he said they were
meteor
crystals.
showers. They were crystals coming into the atmosphere and getting like dragged around by the orbit or something like that.
And like hyper heated, I think, so they explode.
Yeah, so I'm really hoping that's going to look really cool because
Me too.
I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
Another small detail I want to throw in there that I don't know if you've noticed or if you've seen on the internet yet, but that makes me personally really excited and also hesitant is Luthern's. Okay,
Yeah.
so Luthern puts that weird wig on and
He's obviously like an antique dealer.
yeah. And did you notice the pseudo armor?
The armor, yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, I didn't the first time I saw. Actually, what I saw first was like a Mandalorian armor. Like there was like a Mandalorian like chest piece and stuff. It looked almost like Jango Fett's armor, which I thought was pretty cool. But then on the wall, there's that Sith Stalker armor, which I didn't really see until I saw some stuff circulating on the internet.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like it's a Sith Stalker armor, which Starkiller did use in like an alternate ending to The Force Unleashed, and he had in like some visions towards the beginning of the game too. But it is
right,
like
that's his dark side armor. That is his evil like.
Yeah, which it's hard to tell if like that's confirming Starkiller exists or not because it is a thing outside of him. Like it's not like his personal armor. There is like Sith Stalker armor that other Sith have used, and it's like the same idea.
Yes,
same
but
thing.
surely, but they could have put any other type of old armor.
That's
but
true.
They chose that specific, and everyone correlates that armor with Galen Merrick.
Galen Merrick, you're right. So
I feel like it would be a kick in the nuts to put it in there and to not.
I mean,
it's cool to have it there.
It could just be an Easter egg.
It could be.
Even in like
the first time it's even nodded towards.
That's true. I mean, like in Solo, Dryden Voss did have like Mandalorian armor up in his stuff, and it was just an Easter egg. But this is a lot more specific than that,
Yeah, it's not a generalized race that has that armor.
Right. It's only. I mean,
for the most part.
I mean, yeah. There's like all that Legends lore, which might be canon, with the Sith and everything, but yeah. So
I saw someone else notice that Plo Koon's mask was also there.
Really? Oh, okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I thought that was kind of cool. He also had a Jedi and Sith holocrons.
Oh wow, he has a lot of cool stuff.
So he had. He had. I watched a little video
that's pretty sweet.
of some of the stuff that he had in that room, and I'm like, oh.
Didn't he also mention Rakata or Rakatan something, which is the Infinite Empire, which was like
I'm not familiar.
Yeah, I think it first showed up in a video game. And it's first showed up in Knights of the Old Republic, but it's like a really old empire, like tens of thousands of years old. And it was first mentioned in Star Wars: The Knights of the Old Republic, and then like expanded upon in like comics and stuff. But just the fact that they kind of made them actually canon is interesting. Though it is definitely kind of obscure, kind of a deep cut. So it was probably just like an Easter egg to show, like, oh, yep, they exist. But yeah, I get the only thing is why would he have that Sith Stalker armor? Like it can't be Starkiller's armor specifically.
I don't know, man. It also fits the time frame.
It does. Yeah.
Because it fits the time frame as well. And because I believe that all took place, his story took place prior to episode 4. I'm not 100% sure because I believe it. I believe the original Death Star was still it was still the original Death Star
Oh
that
wow.
was in the
Okay,
game. I can't quite remember.
so it starts out like the franchise starts out at 18 BBY. I'm guessing like in flashbacks and stuff, and then it goes to
And
2 BBY.
wait. The Force Unleashed?
Yeah.
Really? Did you Episode 3 takes place at 19 BBY.
Right. So it takes place. Yeah, because at the beginning of the game, you play as Darth Vader and hunt down like a Jedi. So that must be like the 18 BBY because it was like a year after Revenge of the
Okay,
Sith.
got you.
Yeah.
Right. Speaking of that, because it's a perfect uh, fucking thing.
A transition.
Yes, that word. Apparently, I read this also that Ram Koda's name was in the the path in Obi-Wan,
Okay.
like
Oh,
Quinlan
really?
Voss's. Yeah, and Ram
Okay.
Koda was Starkiller's or Galen Merrick's master,
Okay. Interesting.
who Darth Vader kills,
Right.
or at least we think kills at the beginning of that game. And the only reason I kind of remember that is because I about within the last year I started that game over again.
Okay. So like that makes me wonder because like for a long time, everybody thought that the Force Unleashed wasn't canon. And the problem with those games is there are like alternate endings that don't make any sense canon wise. But
Right.
so like do you think they're kind of like leading up to making that canon somehow, or at least partially canon, like taking out the stuff that makes sense and
I
leaving
think
aside,
that an
the stuff that doesn't?
adaptation, I think an adaptation of a secret apprentice of Darth Vader's
Hmm.
being Galen Merrick is totally doable
Yeah.
within the current canon. I
Yeah.
think that my hesitancy towards it
Hmm.
is the fact that I would want a very powerful Galen Merrick,
Right, which
like is reflective of the game.
mhm.
And the example I keep using is
And they
like
made him
he's
like so
strong
OP.
enough, yeah, that he pulls a Star Destroyer out of orbit.
Yeah.
Like that's not a small feat. That's like a Darth Vader or a Luke Skywalker level of using the Force. It's almost inconceivable use.
Yeah.
And so it's like I almost don't want them to put him in canon that way he doesn't get washed down.
Sure.
And I kind of want him to, because it's like almost like me wanting to preserve the memory of those games in a way, because
Yeah.
like that was important in my childhood.
Yeah.
But I'm not. I like if they do it well, I
Yeah.
would be totally okay with it. But if they wash it down too much, I'm gonna be kind of upset about it.
Sure.
I ain't gonna lie.
And if they did do that, would you want it to be like kind of where they decanonize the second game where he's good, or because like there's basically two endings to his story, because in the
Yes.
Force Unleashed, the original, he either goes off and joins the light side in the second game, or at the end he dons that Sith stalker armor and just like fully embraces being a Sith.
Um, I think I would prefer if he went back to the light side, to be
Okay.
honest, because what it is a return to character, a return to roots for him.
True.
Although I would really love to see a really badass like Sith series or movie,
Yeah.
like a really just gritty, and I feel like he would be the perfect character for it.
Yeah.
Now, say the armor is indicative of him gonna be canonized. I think that using that armor specifically is them leaning towards him being and continuing to be a Sith. Because like, why not use his
Yeah, but I mean,
other armor?
they didn't make the armor specifically for him, so it
Yeah,
could just
I
be
guess
like
I didn't
a
really
tease.
know that history either, to be honest.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that was like a thing he did. I didn't realize that was a thing that there was multiples
yeah.
of that armor.
Yeah, like it seems like they hadn't used them for like a long time, but yeah,
Okay. But also his story plays in well with, I'm gonna say it, the sequels because of the cloning.
Oh,
Because
okay.
remember, he is a clone.
Okay, I did not remember that.
Oh, no? Okay.
No, to be honest, so I played the second game like all the way through, yada yada. I only played like half of the first game, to be perfectly honest with you, and that was
Okay.
years ago.
So, in I believe at the end, and I'm really digging at my memory right now.
Hmm.
Um, at the end of the first game, you come face to face with the dark side Star Killer, who is, and you don't know who the original is, but it's kind
Okay,
of like told that Darth Vader has gone through many iterations of Galen Merrick,
interesting. I
and
forgot that. Okay.
and the Galen Merrick that you play in the first game is still struggling with his confliction
Hmm.
in his force orientation, I guess.
Yeah.
If that's what you want to call
Yeah.
it. But he gets killed in one ending by his clone, and
Okay.
his clone takes his place because he is
Okay.
because the Sith variant is the one that Darth Vader obviously prefers.
Well, yeah, sure.
Because and I
That
think
would
a
actually be
big
cool to have both, though. Like to have like the Sith version and the Jedi version of Galen Merrick, like in the same.
yeah, that would be cool. Um, but just maybe it's just my like I'm so excited to have him in
Hmm.
canon that I just want it to be true, you
Yeah.
know?
I
And
mean, same. He's a really cool character, and like I feel like it's a very cool storyline to just kind of throw under the bus. But then again, there are plenty of other legend storylines that they've done that too.
yeah, yeah.
But the thing that would be kind of cool is, they had an actual actor do like motion capture stuff for that character, and like they could use the same actor, even though he's a little older now.
Yeah.
He's like in his early 40s, but Sam Witwer, but he's an actor who's done other stuff, like, and not to mention a voice actor, like he's done the voice of Darth Maul in the Clone Wars and Rebels,
Oh, really?
and in Solo, yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
so
Okay.
he's been connected to Star Wars for like over a decade. What would be actually be really interesting is if he showed up in like Ahsoka, older, and like kind of
Ooh.
like tells his story. So like the actual games are like canon, but then we get to see him, after
Yeah.
them.
Oh, like it doesn't play out it doesn't actually show his story. It just kind of shows him at the end of his
Yeah, or maybe
I
they have like
see.
a couple flashbacks that are like recreations of events in the game.
Yeah, but like you said, the plot of the games are kind of muddy because of
Yeah,
multiple
that
endings.
they would have to choose one storyline or kind of like mix them together.
Yeah. I think it could be done.
Yeah, I
I
think
think it could be done.
it would be very cool to see him in live action
And
though,
I
because
think,
he's a
oh,
very cool
dude,
character.
I think that would be perfect for Ahsoka
Yeah,
because two separate apprentices from different sides of the Force trained by
hmm
the same person.
yeah, that would actually
Ooh,
be very interesting. Which
that would be awesome.
I mean, I feel like we are getting a little ahead of ourselves because probably it's not going to happen, but it would be awesome if it did.
Yeah, I know.
But speaking of Ahsoka, just real quick, like this has been going around for a while. I feel I can't remember if they were like confirmed fake, but there have been rumors that Darth Maul is going to be in it, which doesn't make any freaking sense unless it's a flashback.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know the time place. I don't know the timing of the Ahsoka show, to be honest.
Well, I'm pretty sure it happens. Well, it has to happen after Rebels because we have like adult Ezra Bridger.
Uh-huh.
But Hayden Christensen is coming back though as Anakin slash Darth Vader, so there's gonna be flashbacks. It's probably gonna take place in like multiple different, um, you
Sure.
know, times. So maybe because there was like this set photo that supposedly was leaked that showed Ahsoka in like live action Darth Maul.
Mm,
So, but it's been kind of muddy whether those were real or fake.
right.
But so it seems like they are going to do some interesting stuff in the Ahsoka show. So, I mean, I
Yeah.
wouldn't put it past like nobody expected Luke Skywalker to show up at the end of Mandalorian season 2. So,
Yeah.
or nobody like actually expected. There's people like talking about it for a long time, and nobody really thought they were going to do it.
And then kind of just
Um,
boop.
yeah, or even well, actually, Boba Fett was kind of confirmed before that, but still. So I mean,
Yeah, but that was like it was real, like subtle.
yeah. So I'm not sure. At this point, it could go. Whether they introduce Starkiller or not. It seems like Ahsoka is the only project coming out soon that makes any sense that he would show up.
Yeah. I
But
mean, that would be a way to do it. Just a subtle nod towards
mhm.
the character and then drop him in.
I
But
mean,
like I said,
they
I'm
could
not going to
always
get
do it
my
in the
hopes
second
up too
season.
high.
Yeah, right. Of course.
So generally, of the Star Wars shows that have been released, I think that, I guess aside from Obi-Wan, but both Andor so far and Mandalorian, the stories, the actual story is really good for just experimentation. Like when Mandalorian came out, it was just kind of like like just a character that's kind of just doing his own thing
Yeah.
and off in the universe. And now we have Andor,
Hmm.
who's you know like an important character later on. But like,
Hmm.
what's the reason to tell his story?
Right. Yeah.
So
Exactly. That because that's what I thought when they first said they were going to be making an Andor series. I'm like, I mean, that's cool. He was a cool character, but he's friggin' dead. You know.
yeah,
So,
right. So like,
but
what's the point?
right,
But
and
I'm glad
it's
they're experimenting. That's
well,
my
yeah.
point.
It seems like the point is like world building.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm supportive of that.
And I think it makes sense because I would prefer them to do that through the catalyst, like you said, the catalyst of like a character we already kind of know, as
Hmm.
opposed to just making up another character.
Yeah,
Especially considering, there's so many, like, especially in Rogue One, there are so many characters in it that they just really didn't explore much. So it
right.
was kind of the perfect, if they're gonna pick a character, out of one of the projects to explore more, I guess that works, as if they're doing it to do more,
Yeah,
world
because
building
it's
and stuff.
inconsequential.
Yeah.
At
Plus, he's
since we
tied so much to the Rebel Alliance. It makes sense that they would use him.
yeah, absolutely. I do need to watch Rogue One again. I might do that
I'm
tonight.
I'm probably gonna do it after Andor is finished because it's technically a prequel.
That's a good point. Maybe I should wait.
But yeah, I'm definitely
What
going to
other
rewatch it.
what other shows are confirmed? I know Ahsoka is.
Yeah, so we
I
have
heard
Ahsoka. Are we
I
just
heard stuff
talking?
about Lando.
Are we just talking live action?
Not necessarily.
Okay. Well, because we obviously have Tales of the Jedi. That's like
Hmm.
that. Then there's well, are we just
That's gonna be cool. Tales of
yeah,
the Jedi. It's gonna be really cool.
definitely Ahsoka.
Yep.
There the Alkalite, which takes place during the High Republic, which
Okay. Yep. I
could be
remember
kind
that.
of cool because they've never really done anything that far in the past
Again,
before in live action.
experimentation and world building.
Yeah, yeah. Really, I really want them to do an adaptation of the Old Republic, but that doesn't be happening anytime soon. And then
Right.
there's Lando, which is confirmed, and Donald Glover's confirmed to be in it, but it is like in very early development, seems like. And
Okay.
then
So
there's
it's
yeah,
and then
there's Skeleton Crew, which not really sure what exactly that's going to be about, but Jude Law is the main star. Okay, so it follows a group of kids who are about 10 years old who get lost in the Star Wars universe. So it's really hard to tell what this is going to be. Like Jude Law seems to be like the main star of this, but hard to tell if this is going to be like more like a Star Wars kid show or if it's going to be more
okay.
yeah, because it does seem like it focuses on these kids, so I don't know what they're going to do with this.
And you said, is that one live action as well?
Yes.
Okay.
There's something else showing up on IMDb, Star Wars: A Droid Story, and I don't know if that's going to be a
Not
thing.
interested.
Oh, it's yeah, right. It's an animated series featuring R2D2 and C3PO. So like, who
I was
cares?
just about to say, I was just gonna say that it's like if it's anything like those droid episodes in Clone Wars, I want nothing to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah,
Like, ah, those episodes are so hard to get through. I'm not gonna lie.
they are so hard to get through. Oh my god,
uh, like
they're
they have a whole episode of C-3PO and R2-D2 trying to get fruit for a cake for Padme.
Frick. Oh my! I fucking forgot about that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
you
so.
remember that episode?
God, talk about filler.
Uh-huh.
Oh
I
God.
mean,
You know, when Clone Wars is like at its best, it's great. It's
so
amazing.
good.
But man, there are some episodes that are just the worst.
Like
But
Jar
yeah.
Jar Binks episodes.
Oh God. You
Uh,
know, the only like thing that was cool about that was Mace Windu was like featured heavily in it.
mm,
Like the whole thing where he got married and then like got kidnapped or something. But yeah, it's like nobody asked for that.
ooh, I'd like to see you. See, the thing, my problem is like I want a live action show showing the backstory of all like good characters, like Mace Windu.
Oh gosh, yeah, I
You know
know.
what I mean?
Like,
It's like I
well,
want all of it.
there are so many good Star Wars characters, you know, and they could
So
like have a
many.
series for all of them, you know.
Like
But
I would even watch like a Padme. Like I would follow like to watch Padme and her rise in like the Senate.
yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
I would enjoy that.
yeah, I mean, there's like 10 years between 2 and 3, so that would actually, you know, yeah,
Exactly. So
that
it's
could
like
be interesting. And I
yeah,
love Net and Naboo, you know, like I just like their style and aesthetic and everything.
sure.
So that would actually be kind of interesting.
You could just have a Naboo show and then you could show Palpatine's uh influence there.
Yeah, yeah, that actually would be kind of interesting.
Um
But I mean, yeah. So I feel like we left Andor behind a while ago, but
well, like we said, like it's still setting itself up
yes,
um, for the most part, and I'm excited to see more. I think it's more of like
me
we're in an
too.
anticipation period. You know,
Yeah.
like we see the storms coming, and we're kind of like just almost there.
Hmm.
So I feel like it's all kind of just up in the air right now. So there isn't really a ton to talk about, I suppose.
Right. Yeah. And next few, like this definitely went on a little longer than I expected, but the next, because I feel like when we start talking Star Wars, we just kind of, you know, we just
Yeah,
start
it
talking.
definitely happens. It definitely happens.
But the next, well, I mean, it didn't help that they put in freaking Easter eggs for Star Killer and stuff.
I'm sorry, and I had to say I wasn't going to be able to sit here and not mention it.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I can't blame you. You know, I can't blame you. But the next episodes are going to be focusing on one episode each, so they're probably going to be a little shorter. But
That's cool.
yeah, so anybody who got to this end, thank you so much for listening. And be sure to check out Bryce on social media and Real Stranger. I think it's pretty much just Instagram, right?
I do have an Instagram, yeah.
Yeah.
I believe
So
it's Real Stranger IG.
okay. All right. Cool. And be sure to check us out on social media as well. Our usernames are in the description. And check out our YouTube channel, Casual Comic Fans. That link is going to be in the description of this episode as well. And stay tuned next week for the next episode where Bryce will be joining me again. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
Later.